On Monday morning, Abiside's lawyer Barrister Akong handed the agreement in sheets to Edu. She collected them and read it for a long time, not understanding some of the English grammar that was written on it. When she got to the last paragraph which said, "Contract wife must not have a pet," her mouth turned down in a disgruntled grimace. "I disagree with this. I can't leave Line behind when I move in with him," she said. "What's this all about?" Abiside demanded. He took the papers from her and read it through quickly. He stared at her for moments and then turned to Barrister Akong. "Erase that off. I will get a puppy house for Lina." It was signed by him, Edu, and finally Barrister Akong. "Don't we have a witness?" Edu asked. "Don't worry, there are cameras here. I will pay you half of the cash before we go into business. We will be getting married tomorrow." "No. Not without a proper right like the contract said. You have to come meet my father as his proposed son-in-law," she said. Abiside gave out a loud laugh. "What's funny?" Edu asked. "The word son-in-law sounds a bit like drama. I am set to leave the lady and gentleman," Barrister Akong said. He walked slowly toward the two of them, shook their hands and said, "Good luck. But you two will make real couples," he added. Edu chuckled. She knew he was right. She'd wished she was signing a real marriage registration form. She knew she had started loving him, but was trying hard to control that exhilarating emotions and feelings that almost made her forget that it was just a mere drama to lead him to the governorship seat. "I have an appointment with the governor. We will talk later about meeting with your father. I will inform my parents of you tonight," he said and gave her a soft kiss on the cheeks. She stopped feeling less inferior, and was now feeling more queenly. It was what he wanted of her. Trying not to stare too hard at his cute looks, she stared at the picture of him, which she took on his wall. At 3 o'clock, she glanced pointedly at her watch, which said 5 minutes past 3. "Don't be anxious, Odiahom Bakara, they will be here soon," her father said. They were both sitting in the sitting room with her uncles and other relations. Bessie walked in looking excited in a buba wrapper. She hugged Edu tight and dragged her to the corridor. "You made the right decision," she said delightedly. "I am doing this for my father, Bessie," Edu said. She wiped the handkerchief around her neck and shoved it inside her purple-colored clutch purse. She was elegantly dressed in a simple up-and-down encore print. She had applied a glossy lipstick on her lips which added a little sheen. "Despite all of this, just do what he says. Do this for us. For your father and I. I know where my husband and I will be when Abiside becomes the governor. And you? Being a friend to a first lady is going to place me in another rank in society," Bessie said sweetly. Edu watched her and gave a forceful smile. They could hear sounds of cars approaching. "They are here," Edu said nervously as she gave an exasperated sigh. When Abiside saw her, he was startled by her looks. His father was huge and masculine. And he had 2 soldier men walking behind him. Abiside's father had a stony face. Idiu's father smiled and exchanged pleasantries with his guest. Edu prostrated when she greeted Abiside's mother. She was a beautiful woman who had gold and sparkling jewelry all over body. Her wrapper had blinks and shiny stones adhered to them. And her long painted nails were so long that Edu could not stop staring at them. Abiside led her through the back door, like he knew his way around the house. "My parents don't know of this. Please save us the stress of disgrace," he said as he stared directly into her eyes. She nodded calmly with so much innocence. Abiside's father and Idiu's father talked about the war, they talked about politics and Abiside's intention of leading the state very soon. He will win. Nigeria needs young leaders like him, Idiu's father said proudly. He wasn't sure of his feelings for Abiside, if he really liked him for his only child or not. All he cared about was his daughter's safety and happiness. Abeside winked at Edu when she was called out to identify him as her husband-to-be. She was shy. He smiled at her like she was the only one present at that moment. The whole street stood still, as more cars of influential people trooped into Edu's father's compound. It turned out to be a big event. And everyone began to ask how the wedding day might be like. They were making a great deal of noise at the introduction. The soldiers shot out bullets into the air, the men drank in merriment, while the women cooked meals and danced in unison. They were all high-spirited, preparing themselves for the D-Day. Abeside was smiling very brightly after his wedding. Edu was excited too. It was a grand society wedding. At that moment, they had both forgotten about the contract. Honeymoon was suspended due to the ongoing campaign for Abeside's governorship election. He went hand in hand with Edu to all his campaign grounds, and the people loved them together. The women at Abak local government sang and spread their wrappers on the sand for Edu to walk on, after she addressed the women and promised them free and compulsory education for their children, and well-built homes for the widows. They loved her. Everyone talked about her beauty. Abeside Orok for governor of Itai State, no one else. A young boy at about 18 years of age had these words boldly written on his cardboard. He held it up high with his two hands. While most people had ABD for the win, others had different things written on theirs. Edu had a woman officer attached to her. Her name was Mercy. She was humble and loyal to her. While Edu remained Mercy's boss, Mercy had wondered why she had to marry her rude boss. Abeside was a no-nonsense man. He was principled, and very learned. Mercy had once witnessed how he disgraced his former secretary Afion for trying to seduce him at his office. "Are you the devil's apprentice?" Abeside asked his secretary Afion when she tried to reveal her cleavage to him. "No, sir. I am not the devil's apprentice, sir," she said embarrassingly, turning quickly away. The next day, Afion went back to the office. The books on her table were packed into a brown carton. She carried the brown envelope on her table, and after she opened and read it, she became ashamed when she saw that she was fired. Abeside warned the other female staff against flirting in miniskirts and skimpy dresses around him. Mercy witnessed how he had walked several girls out of his office. Abeside was mean and snobbish, she thought. She saw Edu as a companion who only followed orders, just like her. "Do not refer to me as Excellency yet," Edu said to Mercy before she alighted from the car. "It's not right to address me that way," she added, and strode into the house in her elegant Prada dress. She was not comfortable with the drivers opening the door for her, or even the maid serving her food. She wouldn't let Mercy hold her handbag, or hold the umbrella for her when it was sunning or raining. "Has Lina been fed?" she asked the cook, who appeared before her dressed in a check flare gown and a yellow apron tied around her waist. She had cold water in a glass on her hands. "My lady, she ate an hour ago," the cook said calmly, prostrating. "Since morning?" Edu asked surprisingly. The cook nodded before she answered. "No, my lady, she ate biscuit bone and soup in the morning, melon soup and semo in the afternoon, and custard this evening." The cook reeled off. She watched Edu take the water respectively from her and walk down the hallway to the room. The cook was an elderly woman in her late 50s. She had been Abeside's cook for 28 years, and her salary increased every single month. Edu's heart skipped when she stepped into the room and turned the light. Abeside was lying down on the bed, his laptop on his laps, and he placed much concentration on the laptop. "You are supposed to be at a 5-star hotel with your deputy governor-to-be and your campaign manager escort," Edu said, removing her earrings and placing them on the dressing table. "I came to make love to my wife," Abeside said sensually, quite unlike him. He closed the laptop and walked to where she stood. "How was the meeting with the Itai women?" he asked softly, as his thumb stroked up and down her neck. "They can't wait for you to be governor. Edem Udip doesn't stand a chance anymore. Did you see the crowd you pulled through in all the 12 local governments? You gave me good luck, my darling Edie, he said. He bent his head and she thought she felt his lips brush very gently across her forehead. She shivered, and wondered what brief caress had to do with what she was saying. Esicott thinks we are winning this, Edu said, smiling widely. Sh. Abeside whispered as he placed his finger on her lip. No more politics and campaign. It's just you and I now. But this whole thing is for you to win. Me, our marriage. It's all for you to win, she said with a serious face. She heard the laughter in Abeside's voice and there was a sinking feeling in her stomach. She had a sudden intuition that he loved her and more, that he was head over heels in love with her, but the pride in him wouldn't let him just say the things he felt inside. But if he really loved her, why would he want marriage with her by contract? He held her dress and tore them unexpectedly, kissing her uncontrollably and trying to unhook her brassiere. Oh no, my prodigal, she muttered with a hiss. I will buy you 100 of them, sweetheart, he whispered as he pushed her to the bed and made love to her passionately. Esicott, Abeside's campaign manager, had just left the breakfast table to prepare the convoy for the last campaign at Iket Ekpin. What a sumptuous meal I just had, he said to himself as he instructed all the drivers to warm the cars. Edu and Abeside were seated at a distance away from each other across the table. She gulped water down her throat and turned to lift her face to stare at Abeside. He was still nibbling slowly on his bread. I will be seeing a client today at my office. He is having a wedding, Edu said softly. He? Abeside asked, still nibbling on his soft banana bread. What's wrong with a he? Everything. The contract says no relationship with other men until the contract is over, Abeside said meanly. I don't understand this. This guy is my client. We are not friends. And even if we turn out to be friends, I won't have anything intimate to do with him, Edu said, almost angry. Well, I don't care. You have people working for you, send them. Get this straight, Edu, you're my wife. Contract wife, she retorted bitterly. Wife is wife. You do what I say you should do. I own you. Damn you, she yelled angrily, hitting on the glass dining table. She stood up and walked away angrily. He threw the bread on the table and ran after her. Holding her hands, he pushed her slowly to the wall. Get this straight. I am not getting anything straight, she said boldly. The words on that contract paper were not written in Chinese. You read them, you signed and agreed to every single damn agreement on those sheets, Abeside said forcefully. So, I am quitting my passion because of this damn fake marriage. Contract marriage. Not fake. You're still a photographer by profession, my darling. You can cover events and take pictures, but of me alone for 2 years. I am paying you so much for this. What will people say if they get to hear that the First Lady is her husband's photographer? She asked, sadly. Tears clouded her eyes. Well, I don't give a fuck about what people think. Stop getting me upset, he said as he kissed her lip. Do you get yourself? You want me to be your contract wife, go everywhere with you for your campaign. You come back and... Are we still on this discussion again? Are we? He asked softly, running his hand carelessly on her hair. He walked away from her. She stood there, confused and bittered. All that power and noise, it fits you, Abeside, Esicott said to Abeside in a low as they watched the crowd of men, women, and children dance and sing with pictures of Abeside on their banners. Abeside shrugged and smiled as he watched the cheering crowd of people shouting Abeside. 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 Edem Udip might rig the election next weekend, but he will not win, Esicott said boldly. He was an older man with a bald head and a white short beard. A fine man at his age and status. He was fierce and many people feared him for who he was. Being a lawyer for 25 years, Essicott was popularly called Karma in the law court, where he handled political matters and always won. He had been a personal lawyer to so many politicians and he always had his way to everything he always wanted. He was a problem solver. Edem Idip will lose woefully this time, Essicott said. I am not in competition with anyone, Essicott. He wins or loses, I still exist, Abiside said. And what if we rig the election? I have access to rigging machines from China. No. I will do no such thing. I am a man of honor. Men of honor rig election. There is no election that doesn't get rigged. We must do this for you. Most of these people standing here don't have voter cards. We must do this to make you win, Essicott said. No. And let's not talk about this anymore, please. There was a challenge in his voice. Essicott had always found it hard to resist losing. He hated to lose and wanted to do everything in all his power to make Abiside win. His campaign tactics were amazing. He knew the words he sent to Abiside to tell the people. It was exactly what the people wanted to hear. But Abiside said them with sincerity in his heart. If he wins the election, he might probably be the best governor the people of Itai State might have. He was a brave and powerful politician who knew what he wanted. My wife and I will expose Itai State to the digital world and fight for girl-child rights, he said aloud to the crowd of people, as they all gave a joyful noise and clapped their hands. Edu stood proudly behind him. He said things she wanted to hear, about women, children and the less privileged. Abiside was going to eradicate poverty and hard labor. Edu believed in his words. Afterwards, she could never decide whether it was the money that had made her give up everything for him and his career, or if it was what she really felt deep inside. After the elections, the result was announced the following day on different TV channels in Itai State and Nigeria. After the vote counting, Abiside was announced the winner. He became the most handsome governor whom women crushed on. He addressed the people powerfully at the first state gala night he had with his new commissioners and statesmen. His deputy governor, Lady Etido, was a powerful widow who was a one-time commissioner for women's affairs. Edu fell into a deep, warm sleep after she arrived at the government house from the dinner party. She awoke in the morning full of excitement and optimism. She woke up on a new bed, in a new executive bedroom and into a new life full of tasks and royalty. Good morning, Your Excellency, your water is ready. After your bath, your secretary will meet you for the weekly agenda, her personal assistant Mercy said sweetly. She was dressed in a police uniform. Edu smiled. She was now the first lady. That didn't excite her. She was excited that her father had gotten back his company. Thank you, Mercy, she said calmly. And as she stepped into the bathtub, Abiside appeared in a white robe. Good morning, my lady, he said gently as he pulled the rope on the floor and got into the bathtub. I didn't see you last night, Edu said. Long meetings, my love, he replied and began to kiss her lips. You're the first woman I have ever loved this much. I see myself thinking about you. I should have married you properly, he added. You married me properly, Edu retorted. No. Not that. I mean apart from the contract thing. Oh, that. She gasped. What's your agenda for today? I will be going to the airport to choose a personal jet for myself. But before then, my secretary will have to give me a full agenda for the week. Harold Mensah, the Ghanaian ambassador, said you're the most beautiful first lady in Nigeria presently, he said, smiling and running his hand on her hair. She smiled forcefully. He hasn't met all of them, she said. He has. That is why he said that. She gave him her best dignified smile and poured the liquid soap into a soft sponge, scrubbing her body with it softly. He stared at her with so much pleasure in his eyes. The new secretary to the governor's wife, Mrs. Anita Umaran, was elegantly dressed in a Swiss suit. She was prepared to meet the First Lady for the first time after her appointment. And when Edu walked into the sitting room, Anita stood to her feet for her as a sign of respect. "Your Excellency," she said in oral English. "Mrs. Anita, please sit," Edu said as she hugged her lightly. After Anita gave out the weekly agenda, the convoy moved to the airport where Edu had to inspect her new private jet. The people at the airport began to scream, "First Lady, First Lady." She waved slightly and smiled. "A few months ago, I was only a young photographer who was striving to survive in Nigeria. And now, I am the First Lady of Itai," she said smilingly, turning to her personal assistant Mercy. "It is the Lord's doing more," Mercy said calmly. Her tone was almost conciliatory. She made a hasty inspection on the jet. "Get my camera from the car," she ordered. And within seconds she got her camera and began to take shots of the jet. She loved the interior designs and admired the uniforms of the cabin crew. "Beautiful. I love it," she whispered. Her plans were to make good use of this opportunity that was given to her by Abeside. She will help the poor and the needy, empower women and establish a good organization that will be her one and only legacy that she will be remembered for. She will build a photography school of her dreams and even attend the best in the world after 2 years of her contract with the governor. She walked around the airport and stood at the same spot she'd taken a cab home when she got back from Abuja. "This is the first place I met the governor." "Good." Anita grinned affectionately at Edu. The taxi men around there yelled her name excitedly. "Your Excellency, give us money, oh, we voted for the governor." They all laughed boisterously and even waved at her. "Your Excellency, I took you to item, oh, madam, please see me here," a man said in a loud voice. Her heart trembled when she turned and saw him. He was the image of Abeside. "Is that not the governor?" Mercy asked amazingly. "Of course not. He only looks just like him," the secretary replied, but not certain. But Edu was dumbfounded. Was this the governor or someone else? But Abeside didn't deny that he wasn't the same cab guy. Edu stared at him with shock written all over her face. She was bewildered. He was confused. He didn't know why Edu would stare at him for such a long time and won't say anything. He gave a reluctant laugh which came out more like a snort. She turned away, and when she turned back to ask him his name, she couldn't find him anymore. Edu stood for minutes, staring at the picture of Abeside in their bedroom. She'd overheard Mercy telling one of the policemen, "We saw a man that looked exactly like the governor. We thought he was the one, if not that he was dressed in frayed shirts and was looking tattered." "My lady." Abeside called her name. She drew a sharp breath. She didn't hear when he opened the door. She turned to him, who was already pulling out his suit. "Why are you looking like that?" he asked. "You lied to me, boss. You lied that you were the cab guy that carried me that day from the airport to my house in Itam," she said with a slight of anger in her tone. "You shouldn't say things like that to me ever again." Their eyes met, and she knew that without a shadow of doubt, he deliberately lied to her. "So you lied?" she asked softly. "Of course it was a joke. I joked about being a taxi driver. You should have known from my tone of voice. Abeside, your voice has always been the same. I saw a man that looked exactly like you today. It's possible. People were created in twos, they are not twins but look almost the same." He pulled out his socks and threw them on the floor. Edu watched him pull out his trousers and stood naked right before her. "You should find something to wear." Her voice was young and innocent. "This is my house. I can decide to wear anything or nothing at all," he said boldly. "Pull your clothes and come, let's rest a little before we go down for dinner. I am not in the mood for any romance." "The contract didn't say so," he said stubbornly. But Edu walked out of the room while he watched her slam the door. She couldn't get over the man she'd met at the airport. She wasn't convinced that there was nothing between them, the similarity was too real. And every time she went to the airport, she was alighted by that same place she'd met the taxi driver. But she didn't see him again. She'd asked one of the taxi drivers about him. After trying to describe him, she said abruptly, "He looks exactly like the governor." But the man shook his head. "I don't know him, madam." A year passed, and Edu stopped thinking about the taxi driver. Being the first lady of Itai came with a lot of responsibilities. The taxi driver was the least on her mind. Abuside loved her every passing day. He knew that the contract with her would soon be over, and he knew his life was never going to be the same after the contract would be over. And on that evening he got back home earlier than her. She later joined him, and after a few passionate kisses, he made love to her. He'd wanted to renew his vows for her. This time, genuinely. But she slept off tiredly on his chest. She woke up into a night so dark. Her hands and body shook so badly that she nearly fell. Then she saw this man standing in front of her. He was dressed in a black Sudan. Everything inside her wanted to cringe away from the aura this man projected. "I died during the war, Edu. Take me back to my mother, tell her I died during the war." He heard Abuside's voice. She stared at him long after he disappeared from her sight. The sun slowly crept from behind the cloud as if making certain he was gone first. Its warmth did little to negate the chill that had seeped inside her. He had the most terrifying presence she had ever encountered. She began walking toward the room exit. Her heart was heavy with the weight of fear and worry. Then suddenly, a hand touched her back. She was startled and turned to find out that it was Abuside. She could see his face clearly now. He said the same words. "I died during the war, Edu." For a moment, she didn't move. She began to panic and whimper. She woke into a morning so bright and beautiful. When she realized it was a dream, she sighed. But the fear was still in her when she turned and saw that Abuside was already awake and staring at her. Her stern expression told him something was very wrong. "What's the time?" she asked nervously. 2:07. He replied tersely. His fingers gripped her hand. Fearfully, she searched his features for a clue as to if he knew she was afraid of something. "Is everything okay?" His flat tone alarmed her even more. The darkly asked question bewildered her. Mutely, she stared at him, her eyes wide with apprehension. Edu stood calmly on the balcony, waiting for the convoy to get ready. The Minister of Information was visiting Itai State for the first time. The president had sent him to come see how fast the state had developed in the hands of Governor Abuside. The afternoon was quiet. The sun rode in a cloudless sky. It was not a bright sun. Edu looked like the queen. The one no one has ever seen. She was beautiful in her expensive Ralph Lauren designer gown. "We are ready, Your Excellency," Mercy said shrilly. Edu walked past her, while she followed her behind. By now, she was used to her protocols opening the car door and bending their heads in respect for her. She sat in her jeep gently while the car moved on a long aisle that led to the main exit. She wasn't herself. She wasn't just happy, but she didn't know why she was in such a deep mood swing. As the car approached the gate, she saw crowds of people standing outside. "Why are there so many people in the government house today?" the driver asked with so much concern. But there was no reply from Edu or Mercy. Edu tried to look out through the car window to see what was happening. When the convoy stopped at the gate, the security men stood at attention and gave an abrupt salute. "Ask them what's happening here," Edu said to the driver. He called one of the security men, and when asked why there were too many people at the gate, he said, "One woman came here this morning and said she is the governor's mother. An old woman. See her there." He pointed at an old woman who had white hairs all over her head. "The governor's mother?" Edu asked in a shaky tone. The security man nodded. "Madam, He said that the governor is his late son who had died many years ago. She buried him with her own hands after the war. I am sure this is a setup from the MIA people to bring down Oga. Edem UDP is trying to blackmail us. Chase them away, do not let any journalists close to this axis. Send these people away. The driver said. Almost all these people are journalists and reporters. They are here already. Send them away. Mercy said. But Edu was mute. The words Abeside told her in the dream formed in her head, but she couldn't get them past her lips. Where is the governor? She asked softly. He is at the airport now, Ma. He left with the speaker and the commissioners. Mercy replied. She was no more herself. Hurt, anger, regret. So many emotions stumbled inside her that her equilibrium was threatened. This is blackmail. Mercy said before Edu could break her silence. Let's go. Edu ordered calmly. The driver alerted the convoy, and they drove speedily to the airport. When Edu alighted the airport, Abeside walked towards her and held her hands. But she was scared, so scared that she couldn't place her hands on his. Anger and resentment drained away, leaving only regret. But Abeside was too busy to notice. He thought it was a usual mood swing. After the Minister of Information's visit, Edu could only think of the words that Abeside had said to her in her dreams. It replayed in her head several times. She had sleepless nights, and whenever she managed to close her eyes, she could only see him in the same black suit on. The news of Governor Abeside being a ghost had gone viral on newspapers, social media, news television channels and radio channels. Edu had refused picking her father's and Bessie's calls from the very day they'd heard about the ghost story. Her heart fell after she saw a news headline on Vanguard which read, "A ghost rules over Itai." Her legs and body were shaking when she sneaked out of bed and ran out from the bedroom, screaming. "Get me the car key and my dog," she yelled. Mercy ran to the dog house and brought out Lina immediately. Handing to her Lina and the car key. Edu put Lina behind the car and drove speedily out of the governor's house. She began to weep uncontrollably. She dialed Bessie's number and it rang for a while before she picked. "Edu, what is this news I'm hearing? I can't deal." She cried out. "Take it easy. Hold your breath and talk to me. I need you right now, Bessie. Find me that old woman that claimed to be Abeside's mother. I need to talk to her. I need to ask her questions." Edu said in a shaky tone. Torn between anger, hurt and sorrow, Edu wept bitterly. Just when the love of her life was about to exist, he suddenly turned to be a ghost. Something that sounded like a storybook fiction. Edu wiped furiously at her eyes when she stopped the car. She was at her parents-in-law's house in Ikpa. Slowly, she headed for a path that would carry her to the backyard. "Edu!" Her mother-in-law called out tearily, running out of the house and hugging her tight. "What is this I am hearing about your husband?" she asked. "Your son?" Edu asked boldly. "Our enemies are trying to bring us down," Mrs. Orak said. Edu nodded calmly and walked past her to the sitting room. "If your father-in-law, my husband, should hear of this, he might die of hypertension," she added, wiping tears from her eyes. "I have sent someone to bring the woman who claims she is Abeside's mother. We drove past her at the government house. That woman is too old to be sent to do all this," Edu said. The uncomfortable silence was so long the two women gazed at each other for a while. Edu's phone rang and when she checked who it was, her heart lifted. It was Bessie. "I am with the woman now. I picked her up at the State Secretariat, in the midst of several journalists. Bring her to Ikpa. I am at Abeside's parents' house," Edu said abruptly and hung the call. "To bring who here?" Mrs. Orak asked. "The woman who claimed to be the governor's mother." Mrs. Orak gave a loud sigh. "Poor woman. All she wants is money. We are going to pay her off to stop all these unnecessary rumors. We will talk to her first, Edu said. Moments later, they could hear Bessie's car horn and then footsteps approaching the sitting room. Mrs. Orrock stood up when Bessie and the old woman entered the sitting room. She stared at the old woman shockingly, like she had seen a ghost. And just at the moment, Captain Orrock entered the sitting room in his pajamas. He stared at the woman like he was reading something on her face. "Your face looks familiar," he said, settling on the couch. "I can still remember your face, Captain Orrock. You and your wife brought the bodies of my sons to me at Abaya. You fought for Biafra, sir, remember?" The old woman said. "My husband and I lived in Abaya all through the war. We returned back home when Abaya was no longer safe for us. We had to come back home," Mrs. Orrock said. "Why are you here, madam?" Captain asked boldly. Bessie lowered herself on the sofa as she kept staring at the woman. "My name is Ugoma. Few months ago, I have been seeing pictures of my son on television. People say he is the new governor of this state. I buried him and his brother Obina with my bare hands." Mrs. Orrock cuts in abruptly. "You mean you can still identify your son who was buried in Abaya many years ago?" "Madam, who sent you?" "I bought them. I have pictures of him and his brother right here." She dips hands into her brassiere and brings out a faded photo. Edu grabbed the picture from her and stared at it amazingly.